So this tutorial is about using setting during your own writing. If we analyse the way that setting is used in Grenville's novel, this opening is from page 57, and you can see I've made the annotation at the top that it's a foreign atmosphere, that all the foliage, all the flora, and I presume all the fauna is completely foreign to Rook, but he's fascinated by it. You can see that he makes the statement early on that there were trees, as in other places, but each was stranger than the last. And he goes into this description using words like, say, mops and bare pole and gnarled pink monsters and arthritic fingers. All of these things are sort of foreign descriptions. And then it gets really specific about the kind of foliage that exists in Australia that's unlike the European sort of trees and shrubs that they have. So these words that you can see underlined, they're padded, bark, flaked, soft sheets like paper. Those are the kinds of trees that would have been fascinating to him as a scientific sort of guy, but equally just to have seen how nature can grow incredibly differently. An opening to your scene, if you're choosing it, using nature like this can be really effective, because you may well need to highlight the sort of unseen, unknown newness of Australia and how Rook himself is experiencing that. This scene from page 96 then is the very first time they sort of track a course inland from Sydney Cove. What you're, I think, meant to take out of this is that it's nature and the environment that effectively force the way that they need to go. For anyone who's ever been bushwalking out in sort of outback Australia, it's not easy to track a path often through the bush, and you can see that this frustration is what is mapped out in the description. Just from the start, you can see those little bits that are underlined. Pushed aside a bush, a duck burst up from under the feet. You can see that repeated phrasing of heck, heck, heck being sort of like an internal monologue. A place so strange that it took skin off a man and left him peeled. Unrelenting newness, blindness. All of these terms are meant to just highlight the difficulty of getting through the Australian bush. You know, it's unbridled and unkempt, I suppose. And that frustration is not necessarily delivered, apart from the heck, is not necessarily delivered through an internal monologue. Rather, it's delivered through just how difficult it is to trek through there. And that unmanicured the unmanicured nature of the Australian bush provides the source of the frustration for these guys as they're going through. They find it difficult, incredibly difficult, in fact, and you can see that the description of the setting mirrors that feeling. Okay, simple lesson from this extract is you need to shape the adjectives, verbs and adverbs that you bring to your own writing. Even if you've written out a simple scene, being able to go back in and find opportunities for spaces where you can add your adjectives, add your adverbs, just to sort of give a more graphic or pointed feeling about what you're trying to demonstrate. On the second half of this page here, you can see the water was never still, but it was in conversation with yourself. You know, you get that sort of chatting idea. Often if you go camping, you can hear like a river sort of slapping on rocks or on the shore. And it is kind of like a chatting sort of thing. There's other examples here, but he could hear it slapping up against the rocks. It washed foamily into the crannies. Nothing prevented a drop of that water from making it reverse. All of these sort of things, they're just tiny little additives that you put in to describe the setting, but it immediately puts our minds in a place where we're familiar. You know, we can hear it or see it immediately, and that's what descriptive imagery is meant to do. Just as an aside here, you can see I've taken the beginning of a chapter that starts with the word unusually. Grenville could have started this with just the governor was also at the next Sunday dinner at the barracks, but we get, through the limited perspective, Rook's judgment. just with the fact that he would see it as unusual. Therefore, that can just be placed in as the starting word of that sentence and effectively get across his judgment. I thought I'd just put that in because it's an easy way to provide sort of insight into how the character's feeling. This other section here brings together the geographical sort of language that would have been used by, the military or navy when they went to do work, but it makes the difficulty of movement far more severe. So you can see that the geographic language here of strike due west, diverge north or south, all those sort of things are named, but more importantly, it makes the harsh nature of the Australian bush really clear. See here, too wide to cross, impenetrable, engulfed by fallen trees, ravines full of creepers, rocky slopes. Just how difficult it is to physically move through this nature is made clear. But then you get this sense that maybe that's the pressure or stress that's on some of these officers, or even the governor, for example. If you were to write from the perspective of the governor, does the harsh description of the environment in fact reflect the foreign difficulty that exists in setting up a colony? These are the kinds of things that you've got to ask yourself. What can you borrow from the nature in order to reflect how the limited perspective you're delivering is meant to feel? How can you build that atmosphere through the description of the nature around them? This final little bit is a really nice way to be able to close out a piece. Often students ask, I don't know how to finish, or I don't know how to end this. One strategy that you can use is you can bring a scene to a close using the end of the day, for example, as in the sun setting, the colours of the horizon, or darkness, as in, that's the end of the day, so that could be the end of the piece of writing. Another way here on page 189 is using the night and fire together to sort of show that this is the conclusion of the chapter. So you can see in the first sentence that I've put in a box there, the embers had faded to nothing. Okay, so the fire effectively is going out. And you can see there's references here to dark, blindness, and that the moon is coming up. So if the moon's going to rise, you presume that most people are going to bed. It still keeps this sort of scientific language, watch the moon as an astronomer, but sleep as any other man might. But you can see here how, again, this description of the setting, and that includes all the things to do with weather, time, atmosphere, all those kind of things. You are able to borrow them and manipulate them so that your writing is benefited by your manipulative selection of parts of nature that you choose to draw on. And this little part enables you to take the fire, which would be part and parcel of the end of a day, particularly camping, and show that it's going out. And much like it's going out, that signifies the end of the day, and also signifies rest or sleep for the rest of these men. Good luck with your writing.